Hello everyone, welcome back to our Python programming course. So in our previous videos, we have covered a lot of important concepts. We have learned about variables, data types, type conversion, operators, strings, lists, tuples, sets, dictionaries, and finally decision making using if, else, elif, and match case. Right. So at this point, you are capable of typing simple Python programs. But let me ask you a question. Right. Suppose I ask you to write a program that prints the word Python 5 times. So how are you going to do that? You will probably use this method to print Python 5 times. Yeah. So you'll probably use this method to print the word Python 5 times like this. Right. So does this program work? Yes, it definitely works. But is this a good way of to solve this program? Not really. Because now imagine if I ask you to print Python 100 times. So would you write 100 print statements? Probably not. Now imagine I ask you to print it 1 million times. So that would be pretty much impossible task for you. Now, programming is all about making our work easier. So whenever we notice that we are writing the same instruction again and again, we should stop and ask ourselves, is there a smarter way to do this? So the answer in programming would always be yes. And that smarter way, we called it as loop. As its name suggests, loop means a thing that goes on again and again till an external force stops it. So let's forget programming for a moment and think about real life. Imagine your teacher gives you a punishment and she says, write a sentence on the notebook that I will complete my homework on time. So, not once, not twice, but 100 times. So, would you write the sentence manually 100 times? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. But if computers had to do the same thing, they wouldn't repeat instructions manually. Instead, they would use a loop. So a loop simply means repeat a block of code until a certain condition becomes false. Right? So uh, think of a washing machine, right? You press start, the drum keeps rotating. It doesn't work. It doesn't ask you every second, right? Should I rotate again? So it continues rotating until the washing machine is complete, right? So that's exactly how loops work. Now think of another example. Think about a traffic light. As long as electricity is available, the lights keep changing red, yellow, green, and then again red, yellow, green. So the same process keeps repeating. So this is also an example of a loop, right? So in programming, we often need to repeat the same action many times, and loops helps us to do that efficiently. Now, in Python, there are mainly two types of loops, right? One is while loop, while the other is for loop. So some of you may have heard of a do while loop from languages like C, CPP, or Java. So Python does not have a built-in do while loop, but don't worry. Later in this video, I will show you how to achieve the same behavior in Python itself. So let's begin with the while loop, right? So what does it usually mean? It means that as as long as something is true, right? So for example, why it's raining, carry an umbrella. Or while your phone battery is above 20%, keep watching YouTube. Or while the game is running, keep playing. Right. So notice the pattern. As long as the condition is true, the action continues. The moment the condition becomes false, the action stops. That's exactly how the while loop works. Right. Now let's move on to our first while loop program. Let's take a variable called count and assign its value to 1. Now while condition count is less than or equals to 5. Right, I've given this condition. And similar with the if else format, inside if you are inside the while block, you have to leave a tab space, right? The space you have to leave to indicate Python that now this sentence or this part of the code comes under the while loop, right? And then increase the value of count by 1, right? Now let's run this code and see what happens. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are getting printed, right? So don't worry if this looks confusing, right? We will understand each and every line. In the first line, we're creating a variable called count. Initially, its value is 1. Now it reaches the second line, right? So this line is called the condition. So Python asks the question, is count less than or equal to 5? At the beginning, count is 1. So the answer is yes. Now, since the answer is true, Python enters the loop. Now look at this line. As soon as it entered the loops, it prints the current value of count. So the first output is 1. Right. Now move to the next line. The value of count gets increased by 1. So line is extremely important. Let's understand this carefully. Suppose count is 1, then Python calculates count plus 1. Basically means count equals 1 plus 1. So now it becomes 2, right? So what will happen over here? The value of count becomes 1 plus 1, and suppose 1 is printed beforehand only, right? Now it becomes 2. So is 2 less than 5? Yeah, it's true. So 2 also gets printed. Then the value of count gets added by 1. Now see, is is 3 less than 5? Yes, it's true. So now 3 gets printed. Now let's check is now its value again gets increased by 1. And now let's check. So it will become 4. So now let's check is 4 less than or equal to 5? True. We can print 4. Again, the same thing happens. 5 is not less than 5, but it's equal to 5. So 5 gets printed. Now the value found becomes 6. So is 6 less than or equal to 5? This condition becomes false. So now what will happen? This thing, Python, will move out of the loop, right? So this is the main idea of the while loop. That's why we're getting the output as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this process repeats itself again and again. So Python keeps checking the condition. As long as the condition is true, the loop continues. The moment it becomes false, the loop ends automatically, right? Now suppose in your program, and I'm going to make a very one small change. Okay, I'm going to move this line. Now, guess what will happen? See, 1 is getting printed infinitely many number of times. Why? The loop, the program will never stop. Why? Because count never changes. It remains 1 forever. Right. So Python keeps asking the program, is 1 less than or equals to 5? Every time the answer is yes, so 1 is getting printed every time. And the process continues forever, and thus it's called an infinite loop. Now let's, so here we have printed, so here we have printed 1 to 5. Now let's print it in reverse manner, right? Now let the value of count be 5. Then which what condition I should change? I should put over here while count should be greater than or equals to 1, right? Now I need to print the value of count, and over here I'm going to decrease the value of count by 1, right? Now try doing the dry run on your own, right? So pause the video and do the dry run. I hope that you have tried doing the dry run. Now see, count is 5 and the value of count should be greater than or equals to 1. So 5 is greater than or equals to 1. Yes, it's true. So the 5 will get printed. Now the value of count becomes minus 1. So 1 is subtracted from 5. So now it becomes 4. So is 4 greater than or equals to 1? Yes, it's true. Now it becomes 3. Then it becomes 2. Then it becomes 1. And then it becomes 0. So is 0 greater than or equals to 1? No. Here the condition becomes false. So the loop will terminate over here, right? So now let's run a code and check. Yeah, see, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are getting printed now, right? So let's quickly recap what we have learned till now. A loop is used whenever we want to repeat a block of code multiple times. The while loop repeats the code as long as the given condition remains true. Every while loop has three important parts, right? So this part is called initialization. You are giving a value to your variable. This part is called the condition part, where the expression that decides whether the loop should continue. And this part is called the updation part. So after every one cycle, the value of the variable with which the loop is running changes, right? So changing the variable so that the condition eventually becomes false, right? Changing the variable so that the condition eventually becomes false. So if we forget the updation step, your program may enter an infinite loop. Right, so understanding these three steps is the key to mastering loops. Now let's start with some new concepts, right? We will do some advanced thing with while loop, like printing even and odd numbers, sum of numbers, use input in while loop, break, continue, and pass, right? So now, so far we have printed numbers from 1 to 5 or from 5 to 1. Now let's solve a slightly more interesting problem. Suppose I ask you to print only the even numbers between 1 to 10. So before writing the code, let's think what are the even numbers between 1 to 10, right? So our question is printing even numbers between 1 and 10, right? So what are the even numbers in between them? It's 2, 4, 6, and 8. Uh, If we want to include 10 within the scope of the program, so we can write 10 over here also, right? So can we just do this by using a while loop? Absolutely. So for this, I want you to try it on your own, then look at the scope. So first we are going to initialize our value with 2, the first even number. So this part is called initialization, right? Now, secondly, we are going to use the while loop and give a condition over here that is num should be less than or equals to 10. So what we have done over here is condition. Next thing we want to do is we want to print the number. And second of all, we want to update it. So we will update the number as num plus 2. Now, why num plus 2? Because even numbers appear after two steps. Like so after 2 there is 8. So even number appears in the multiples of 2. Right. Now, so let's check if our program is running correctly. Yeah. So 2, 4, 6, and 8 and 10 are getting printed. Right. There is, since I told you that even numbers happen in the multiples of 2, we can also do over this here. It will also give the same output, right? So you can use many logic to do this program. But the plus one is better over here. Why? Because by multiplying the number by 2, we are basically printing the powers of 2, like 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 2, 2 to the power 3, and then 2 to the power 4, right? So one thing we got to know over here by change C. If you are constantly changing the logics you apply to your program, you will discover new things. Right. Uh, printing powers of 2. So everything is same. We will take a number called, let's take num1 equals 2, then while num should be less than or equals to 10, num equals num into 2. That means if we print the power of 2's till it has reached number 10. Let's increase it so that we can accommodate more numbers over here. Let's do this 50. Yeah. So I'm removing this code from here. Now let's run this. It's like syntax error. Yeah, so see, 2, 4, 8, 16, and then 32 are getting printed because after 32, 2 to the power 6 comes, which is 64. And 64 is less than 50, so it exits from the loop. Right. Uh, Now we have done this program, right? So what we have done over here was we started a loop from 2. Let's start a loop from 1. I want you to guess what would happen if I will start my loop from 1. Let's run it and check. See, now odd numbers are getting printed, right? I want you to do dry run and understand it on your own how odd numbers are getting printed. The logic is very simple as that of printing even numbers, right? Now let's do something more interesting. We like finding the sum of natural numbers. Now in this we have to take a counter as well, right? A counter is a variable that updates its value. First take the num as 1 and then take a variable named total as 0, right? Now use the while loop while number should be less than or equals to 10. The value of total will become total plus number, and number will get increased by 1, right? And finally come out of the while loop and print the total. So in this way we have find out the sum of natural numbers from 1 to 10. See, the answer is 55, which is correct. Now, so let's understand this very carefully. First, we'll create two variables. So this number variable will tell the Python where to start from. Total variable. This variable will keep storing the running total, right? Total plus num. So when num is 1 and total is 0, it basically for first cycle, this would have been 0 plus 1. Similarly, for second cycle, it would be it would be 1 plus 2, which is equals to 3. Now, similarly for third cycle, it would become 3 plus 3, which is equals to 6. So this is how the program will proceed, right? Now, this technique is called accumulator, and we will use it many times in future programming, right? Now, let's try taking input from the user and doing operations with while loop, right? So, to make the program more interactive, we are going to use input over here, right? So, let's input the limit till which we want our program to go, to which we want the loop to run. Now, let's assign the value of count to 1 over here, then give the condition. We need to print the value of count over here, and then we need to increase the value of count by 1. So now let's run this code and check what is happening over here. Enter a number. Suppose I enter number 5. See, 1 to 5 are getting printed over here. Now, instead of 5, I'm going to enter 15 to see how many numbers are getting printed. 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes on till 15. Right. So different users can enter different values, but the beauty of programming is that we don't need to change the code anymore. Now let's learn one of the most useful uh, keywords in loops. It's called break, right? Break means to stop immediately, right? Imagine you're searching for your house keys. So you open the first drawer, not there. Second drawer, not there. Third drawer, you find the keys. So do you go on continue searching for the remaining drawers? Of course not. You will stop immediately. So that's exactly how break works. So let's try with the program. If I assign the value of count to 1, and while its value is less than 10, now let's put the if condition inside the while loop. So if count is equal to 6, I need it to come out of the loop, right? And for inside the while block, so this line is for if block and this line is for while block, right? So inside the while loop, I'm going to print the value of count and I'm going to increment its value by 1 each time. So use try run and check till where the program should run. And from my side, I'm going to say that the program will run till the number 5. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are only getting printed. Why? Because I put a condition over here that as soon as the value of count becomes 6, it should exit the loop, right? So it does not care whether the condition is still true after the break statements. Once it's reached there, it exits the loop. So if we understand the use of break in real life examples, so if the user enters correct pin, no need to keep asking or stop searching for contacts. Right. So once found, stop finding a file. Once found, stop searching. Right. So this is the use of the break statement. Now let's move on to another keyword and which is called continue. Right. So many beginners confuse continue with break. They are completely different. So break stops the entire loop while continue. if only one iteration. Right. So let's understand this with the help of a program. Again, I'm going to assign the value of count, and this time to 0. Now see, while count is less than 0, the value of count, sorry, while count is less than the value of 5, then the value of count will become increased by 1. Right. And if count is equals to 3, and now if count is equals to 3, we will use the continue keyword over here, and then inside the while block, I'm going to print all the values of count inside this given range. So now let's check and tell me what will happen. Continuous gets only one iteration. So as soon as it reaches 3 over here, it will skip the third iteration and it will only print 1, 2, 4, and 5 by skipping 3. Yeah, so as you can see, 1 is printed, 2 is printed. Then as we have used the continue statement on the number 3, so 3 is not getting printed, 4 is getting printed, and then 5 is getting printed. So basically what is happening, when the value of count becomes 3, Python skipped only that iteration, right? The loop continued normally afterwards. So, you can better help this with the help of an example. Imagine a teacher taking attendance and one student is absent. Teacher skips that student, continues with everyone else. Now the attendance process doesn't change. So that's the use of the continue keyword. Now let's move on to the next keyword that is called pass. So this one confuses almost every beginner. So the easiest way to understand pass is this. Pass means do nothing, just like 5 star. So it is simply a placeholder, right? Suppose I write this code once again. Count is 1, and while count is less than or equals to 5, now if count is equals to 3, what I need to do, I need to pass it. And inside the while block, I need to print the value of count and then increase its value by 1. Right. So can you guess what will happen? Each and every number is the same. 1 is getting printed, 2 is getting printed, 3 is getting printed, 4 is getting printed, as well as 5 is getting printed. So nothing changed exactly because pass literally means doing nothing. So you usually use pass when you're planning to write code later. For example, if true, pass. So basically what you're going to do here, you have written an if block and you know that you need to add something to it, but you need to come back later. So you don't want to break the scale of your whole program, right? So you put the pass statement. So everything will be processed normally. And without pass, Python would give an error because an empty block isn't allowed. So that's it for all in the topic of while loops. So till now we have learned two powerful loops in Python, the while loop and the for loop, right? So if you've previously learned languages like C, CPP, Java, or JavaScript, you have probably heard about another loop called the do-while loop. Uh, Maybe beginners search on Google, how do I write a do-while loop in Python? But the surprising answer is Python does not have a built-in do-while loop. Now you might think, does that mean Python is missing a feature? Not really. Python's philosophy is to keep the language simple. The developers of Python believe that the existing loop structures are sufficient. But don't worry, even though Python does not have a do-while loop, we can still achieve exactly the same behavior. Now, first question we should ask that what is a do-while loop? Before we learn how to create one in Python, let's first understand what a do-while loop actually does. Think about a password machine. Imagine you are using an ATM. The ATM first asks you to enter your PIN. Only after you have entered it does the ATM check whether it's correct. Notice something. The machine doesn't check first. It asks first, then checks. This is exactly how do-while loop works, right? A do-while loop always executes its body at least once and then only checks the condition. So what we know about do-while loops is that Python has no built-in do-while, and do-while loop always executes the executes its body at least once and only then checks the condition. Right. So this is the biggest difference between a while loop and a do while loop, right? Whereas what does a while loop do? It checks condition, then only it will execute the code if condition is true, right? And if it's not true, it stops, right? So we need to notice the difference very carefully, right? In the while loop, the condition is checked before executing the program, right? So while loop means checking the condition before executing the program. And whereas in while loop, uh, the code executes first, then the condition is checked. So this is the major difference between a while loop and a do while loop, right? So now we might wonder that why didn't Python include this loop? So the reason is simplicity. So Python's creator Guido van Rossum wanted to avoid unnecessary language features. Now, since a do-while loop can already be simulated using a while loop, Python simply didn't add another keyword. An example, Python says, why add another loop when one existing loop can already do the same job, right? So now it's a task to simulating a do-while loop, right? So here's how we simulate a while loop. Let's put a condition over here. Yeah, so this is the program. We need to run it, right? So let's give the input as -5. It's telling me please enter a positive number. Again, enter -2. Again, enter -9. So as you could notice, the program is not stopping. Right, till I enter a positive number, the program will not stop. Like I'm going to enter a 7. Now the program stopped. Right. So let's understand this carefully. The thing while true, it's creating an infinite loop. At first glance, that might seem dangerous, but remember, we know now about the break statement. The loop continues forever until we explicitly break out of it. Right. So if we look over here, the user always gets at least one chance to enter a number. Only after the user enters something do we check the condition. Now, this is the condition. So if the number is positive, we execute the break statement, right? And the loop ends over here. Otherwise, the program prints, please enter a positive number and ask again the user to enter a number, right? So now let's compare both the loops while and do while loops. Now suppose the condition is already false, the output of while loop would be nothing because the condition was false from the beginning, so Python never ended the loop. But instead of a do while loop, the body is executed once even though the condition wasn't satisfied afterwards. That's the defining property of a do while loop. Yeah, so that was it all about the loops that we needed to learn in Python. See you in the next video.